If you looked up Christopher Delgado, you wouldn't initially see a massive financial scheme. You'd see the American dream. He grew up in a trailer park in Fontana, California, the son of a first-generation Mexican-American mother, taking massive personal risks to build a life from scratch. But fast forward to his early 30s, and that humble origin story was buried under a very different reality. He was suddenly incredibly wealthy, constantly seen shoulder to shoulder with A-list celebrities and high-profile figures. His social media feeds were heavily curated to broadcast absolute, undeniable financial success. He was constantly posting pictures of his high-end lifestyle, flying around the world on his own private jet. And when he wasn't in the air, he was driving top-tier luxury vehicles. He made sure everyone saw him stepping out of a dark blue Rolls-Royce, reinforcing the public belief that his investment strategy was untouchable. This aggressive display of wealth functioned as a psychological blindfold. The constant stream of luxury kept eyes fixed on the results, effectively distracting potential investors from looking too closely at the underlying business. That money supposedly came from his private equity firm, Goliath Ventures. Yet, despite Delgado's incredibly loud personal brand, Goliath itself was a ghost. There were no public advertisements, no online pitch decks, and absolutely zero marketing. You couldn't just knock on their door and hand them a check. Goliath operated strictly as an invite-only firm. To get in, you had to navigate a complex chain of personal referrals, relying entirely on someone who trusted someone else who already had a foot in the door. This is a classic psychological tactic. By wrapping the company in total operational darkness, Goliath manufactured an intense aura of elite exclusivity. The less people could see, the more they wanted in, convincing themselves they had stumbled into a secret, high-roller club. Because the entire operation ran entirely on hushed, word-of-mouth recommendations, it flew completely under the radar of journalists and regulators. There was nothing public for anyone to fact-check, giving the scheme a massive runway to operate without interference. It is a highly effective formula. Combining the founder's extreme visibility with the product's extreme secrecy allowed Goliath to quietly absorb over $300 million without triggering basic critical thinking. Behind closed doors, the pitch to these invited investors was highly specific. Goliath claimed they were generating massive profits by managing cryptocurrency liquidity pools, a decentralized trading mechanism. In return, they guaranteed their investors returns of 3 to 5% every single month. This chart shows how those claims detach from reality. Goliath's promised returns scale up to a staggering 60% a year. Meanwhile, verifiable data for actual crypto liquidity pools shows they typically generate only 4 to 10% a year total. Goliath was promising to pay out vastly more money than the underlying asset could ever produce. To keep anyone from doing that basic math and panicking, the company weaponized another layer of trust. They sent out newsletters assuring their investors that a fully independent audit had been conducted, claiming all funds were 115% backed and totally secure. But if you looked at who actually signed that document, the deception becomes obvious. The auditor was an obscure entity called BlackBlock. They explicitly chose a name that sounded almost exactly like BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, banking on the fact that older investors would mishear the name over the phone and feel perfectly safe. When a company invents its own auditor, it removes the final safety net. These fabricated validators turn massive, glaring red flags into reassuring checkpoints, keeping victims trapped inside the system long after the math fails. The people running Goliath knew exactly who was most vulnerable to these tactics. Alongside the main venture firm, there was a completely separate financial management company operating in the background called MyWealthMD. And if you checked the corporate filings, the web tightly connects. The exact same individual who founded the fake auditing company, BlackBlock, was also the person running MyWealthMD. MyWealthMD presented itself to older, trusting individuals as a safe advisory service, convincing them to roll over their traditional IRAs and safe retirement savings directly into the Goliath ecosystem. Internal recordings revealed just how aggressive the strategy was. Recruiters were trained to hunt down active 401ks and thrift savings plans. They were told that if there was any legal loophole to extract money out of an existing retirement account, they needed to find it and move those funds over, with zero effort required from the victim. Goliath was a predatory pipeline specifically engineered to drain the life savings of the demographic least equipped to recover from the loss. The carefully cultivated image of an elite club existed only to facilitate the extraction of retirement funds. The ultimate test of any crypto investment is the public ledger. Tracing the actual wallets on the blockchain strips away the private jets, the fake audits, and the hushed recruiter meetings. It forces you to look at exactly where the dollars are physically moving. When new investors wired money in, it didn't go into decentralized liquidity pools. Instead, incoming cash funneled straight into a single Coinbase account. Then it flows straight back out to pay old investors. The cash travels in a closed loop. That specific flow of capital defines a textbook Ponzi scheme. The entire $300 million empire generated zero actual profit. It survived solely by continuously draining new victims to pay off the old ones, a mathematically doomed structure that guarantees a catastrophic collapse. That inevitable collapse arrived quietly in the fall of 2025. Without enough new cash coming in to sustain the loop, Goliath abruptly froze its payouts. Investors who had been promised hyper-compounding monthly returns suddenly received nothing. While the investors panicked over their missing life savings, Delgado doubled down on the illusion. Right before the next scheduled payment date, he threw a lavish $5 million party featuring a private performance by Jason Derulo, aggressively spending down the remaining funds to maintain the facade of absolute success. But the runway had finally run out. Shortly after the payouts froze, Christopher Delgado was arrested by the Department of Justice and indicted for operating a $328 million fraud. He left the courthouse wearing an ankle monitor, though he still drove away in a Rolls-Royce. Behind the headlines and the indictments lies a trail of permanent damage. Across the world, older individuals who rolled over the proceeds of their sold homes and emptied their retirement accounts are waking up to the reality that their money is simply gone, leaving them with no safety net. It serves as a stark reminder of how these systems operate. Using extreme, hyper-visible wealth to sell an entirely opaque financial system creates a trap built on empty air.